The sun dipped low over Jaipur, painting the city in shades of orange and gold. From the balcony of her parents' house, Anjali watched the narrow streets buzz with life vendors calling out their prices, children chasing kites, women bargaining for vegetables. She loved these small moments, yet her heart felt restless. At 22, she had just finished her studies in fine arts. Her sketchbooks overflowed with portraits and dreamscapes, colors spilling from her imagination. She dreamed of traveling Delhi, Mumbai, even London. A future filled with exhibitions, galleries, freedom. But in her family's world, dreams were luxuries. Duty came first. One evening, her parents called her into the living room. Her mother's face glowed with excitement, while her father looked serious but hopeful. "Anjali," her father began, "we have received a proposal. A very good one. The Sharma family. You know them, they are respected, wealthy, and traditional." Her stomach tightened. "A proposal?" Her mother smiled gently. "Their son, Rohan. He is educated, responsible, and from a good family. This is a chance for you to have a secure future." Anjali's mind swirled. She had never even spoken to Rohan. Marriage? Already? She wanted to protest, to cry out that she wasn't ready, that her dreams were bigger than a household. But she saw the hope in her parents' eyes. For them, this was not just a marriage. It was honor, stability, a promise fulfilled. She whispered, I don't know." Her mother reached for her hand. "Sometimes love comes after marriage, Beta. Trust us. They are good people." Anjali said nothing, but inside, doubt bloomed. A few days later, the Sharmas visited. The house buzzed with nervous energy, fresh flowers in vases, plates of sweets laid out, cousins whispering excitedly. Anjali dressed in a simple blue sari, her hair braided neatly, her heart pounding. When Rohan entered with his parents, she glanced at him quickly. He was tall, dressed in a well-tailored kurta, his expression calm but guarded. He bowed respectfully to her parents, speaking with quiet confidence. The families talked, laughter filling the room. Finally, as tradition allowed, Anjali and Rohan were given a few minutes to speak alone in the courtyard. The silence between them stretched. Rohan cleared his throat. "I know this must feel strange." Anjali gave a small smile. "That's an understatement." He chuckled softly. "I don't want to lie to you. This was not my decision either. But I want to try. I want to make this work. Will you?" His honesty startled her. She looked into his eyes, steady, kind, but unreadable. "I don't even know you," she admitted. "Then we'll learn," he said simply. Something in his tone, calm, sincere, stayed with her long after he left. That night, Anjali sat by her window, sketching absent-mindedly. She drew a woman standing at a crossroads, one path leading to a gallery, another to a house filled with traditions. Her younger brother peeked in. "Didi, are you scared?" She smiled faintly. "A little. Maybe more than a little." He frowned. "But what if he's kind? What if he lets you paint?" She ruffled his hair. "Maybe. But what if he doesn't?" The boy thought for a moment, then shrugged. "You're strong. You'll make it work." His innocent words gave her little comfort, but she tucked them away in her heart. Days passed in a blur of relatives, discussions, and subtle pressure. Finally, her father came to her room one evening. "Anjali," he said softly, "I know you have dreams. But life is not always about what we want, it is about balance. This marriage, it will give you security, respect, and perhaps, in time, happiness." Tears pricked her eyes. She wanted to scream that her dreams mattered too. But she also saw the weight on her father's shoulders, the years of sacrifice, the silent expectation that she would not let them down. "I will do it," she whispered. Her father's face lit with relief. He hugged her tightly. "You will not regret it, my child." But as she leaned into his embrace, she wondered if she had just given away her freedom. The weeks before the wedding were a whirlwind. Relatives poured in from distant cities. The house smelled of turmeric, rose water, and marigolds. Women sang folk songs late into the night as Anjali's hands were painted with intricate mehndi designs, swirls of flowers, vines, and hidden symbols of love. Her cousins teased her, laughing about the wedding night, about the future, about children she might one day have. Anjali laughed with them, but her heart remained heavy. In quiet moments, she sat with her sketchbook, capturing every detail: the sparkle of bangles, the curve of lantern light, the sadness in her own eyes. The night before the wedding, she slipped onto the rooftop for air. The city stretched before her, glowing with lights. To her surprise, Rohan was there, leaning against the wall. "You too?" he asked softly. She nodded. "It's overwhelming." He gave a small smile. "I know. Everyone expects us to smile, to be happy, but we're strangers. Tomorrow, we will be bound for life." His honesty was disarming. For the first time, Anjali saw the man behind the tradition, not just the groom chosen for her, but someone who also felt trapped by expectation. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. He paused, then shook his head. "No, because maybe something good can grow from this. But I can only promise you one thing. I'll try to make this marriage not a cage, but a partnership." Her chest tightened. She didn't reply, but in the silence, something shifted. For the first time, she wondered if hope might still exist in the life waiting for her. When dawn arrived, the house erupted with celebration. Musicians gathered, drums thundered, colors bloomed. Anjali sat silently as women adjusted her bridal veil, whispering blessings and teasing her. Her reflection in the mirror showed a bride of gold and red, but behind the veil was a girl still uncertain of her future. As she walked toward the courtyard, where Rohan waited with garlands and sacred fire, her heart raced. Tradition carried her forward, step by step, into a life she had not chosen but could no longer escape. And as the chants rose around her, she wondered, was this an ending or a beginning? The wedding was everything their families had dreamed of. It was loud, colorful, and bursting with tradition. From the early morning, the streets of Jaipur rang with the sound of dull drums and the laughter of children chasing after the groom's procession. The groom, Rohan, rode on a white horse decorated with silver bells and a crimson cloth, surrounded by cousins who danced in the street, tossing flower petals into the air. Anjali, hidden in the women's quarters, waited in silence. Her lehenga was heavy, embroidered with gold thread that shimmered under the lanterns. The veil covered her face, and the henna on her hands still smelled of turmeric and rose water. Around her, women sang traditional wedding songs, their voices rising like waves, but Anjali's mind was far away. "This is not the life I imagined," she thought, staring at her reflection in the mirror. "But maybe it is the life I was meant to live. Can love grow from nothing? Or will I become just another story of a girl who buried her dreams?" The ceremonies began. Sacred mantras filled the courtyard as the priest guided them through rituals thousands of years old. Anjali and Rohan sat side by side for the first time in front of the sacred fire. They exchanged garlands, their hands trembling slightly as their fingers brushed. They circled the fire 7 times, each round a promise. Families clapped, cameras flashed, and blessings rained down on them like confetti. To the world, they were husband and wife. But inside, they were still strangers. The first morning after the wedding, the sun rose gently over the Sharma household. Anjali woke early, as tradition demanded, though she barely slept through the night. The heavy jewelry still weighed on her neck, and the smell of incense clung to her hair. She stepped into her new home's kitchen where her mother-in-law, dressed in a perfectly pleated sari, was already waiting. "Good morning, Beta," Rohan's mother said. "You must learn the rhythm of this house. Breakfast should be ready before the men wake." Anjali forced a polite smile. "Yes, Ma." The kitchen was unfamiliar, filled with jars of spices neatly arranged: turmeric, cumin, coriander, chili. Anjali tried to follow instructions, but her hands trembled and used to cooking for an entire household. By the time Rohan entered, drawn by the smell of frying parathas, his mother was already frowning. "She doesn't know the right way to knead the dough," she muttered. Rohan glanced at Anjali. She looked down ashamed. He could see the frustration in her eyes. Quietly, he said, "Ma, everyone needs time to learn. Let her adjust." His mother pursed her lips, but said no more. Anjali shot Rohan a quick glance, half gratitude, half surprise. The first weeks passed in silence. Anjali spent her days helping around the house, writing letters to her parents, and sketching late at night in her hidden notebook. Rohan was kind but distant. He returned home tired from his family's business meetings, often carrying the stress of responsibility. They spoke politely, almost formally, like colleagues rather than partners. Sometimes, when the silence grew too heavy, Rohan would bring his sitar into the courtyard and play under the stars. The music filled the night with longing and peace. Anjali would sit by the window, pretending not to listen, though her heart softened each time. One evening, she finally whispered, "It's beautiful." Rohan looked up surprised. "You were listening?" She hesitated, then stepped into the courtyard. "Music, it speaks what words cannot. When you play, it feels like the house breathes differently." For the first time since the wedding, Rohan smiled at her, not out of courtesy, but with genuine warmth. But outside their quiet moments, pressure grew. Relatives visited often, and with them came judgment. "She's too modern," one aunt said. "Always sketching, always dreaming." A proper wife should focus on the household. She won't fit our ways, another whispered. Anjali heard the words. Each one was like a stone added to the weight she carried. She smiled during meals, nodded politely, but inside her spirit began to shrink. Late one night, she sat in the courtyard with her sketchbook, furiously drawing. The lantern light flickered across her face, highlighting the tears she didn't let fall. Anjali? Rohan's voice broke the silence. He stood by the doorway, hesitant. She wiped her eyes quickly. What is it? I just wanted to see if you were all right. She let out a bitter laugh. I'm fine. Just sketching, as always. Rohan walked closer, his brow furrowed. I know what they say. I know how it must feel. She looked at him, surprised. And you? Do you agree with them? He shook his head firmly. No. I don't want a shadow for a wife. I want you. The real you. The one who dreams, the one who paints. Her heart tightened. For the first time, she believed that maybe he truly saw her. A festival came, a night when the streets were filled with lanterns, sweets, and music. The air buzzed with excitement as families released glowing lanterns into the sky. Anjali and Rohan walked side by side, surrounded by laughter and light. Rohan handed her a lantern. Make a wish, he said softly. She hesitated. Wishes don't always come true. Maybe, but sometimes they do. She closed her eyes and whispered into the night, let me find myself in this life. Let me not lose who I am. They released the lantern together, watching it rise into the starlit sky. For a moment, Anjali felt lighter. Not free, not yet, but hopeful. Rohan glanced at her, his face lit by the glow. Whatever your wish was, I'll try to make it come true. Anjali's breath caught. She didn't reply, but in her silence was the beginning of something fragile and real. The glow of the Lantern Festival still lingered in Anjali's memory, but everyday life soon returned with its heavy routines. Dawn meant waking before the household, performing morning prayers, and preparing breakfast under her mother-in-law's careful supervision. Afternoons meant serving tea to endless relatives who dropped by unannounced, each with opinions about how a good daughter-in-law should behave. Anjali smiled when required, bowed her head politely, but inside she felt herself shrinking. Her sketchbook became her secret refuge. Late at night, while the house slept, she filled its pages with frantic strokes, faces of strangers, eyes filled with sadness, and dreamscapes of cities far away. One evening, as she passed the hallway, she overheard voices. She's not like the others, an aunt whispered to Rohan's mother. Too independent. She spends her nights drawing instead of managing the kitchen. Another voice chimed in, sharp and disapproving. Art is a hobby, not a duty. She will embarrass the family if she doesn't learn her place. The words stung like knives. Anjali froze, clutching her notebook against her chest, then hurried to her room before they could see her tears. At dinner that night, the atmosphere was heavy. Rohan's parents discussed business, while cousins laughed about small gossip. Anjali barely touched her food, her eyes downcast. Rohan noticed. He had learned to read her silences. Later, when the family dispersed, He found her sitting in the courtyard, the lantern light flickering against her face as she sketched furiously. "Anjali," he said softly. She didn't look up. "What is it?" "You've hardly eaten." "I wasn't hungry." He stepped closer. "Is it because of what they said?" Her hand froze mid-sketch. Slowly, she lifted her eyes. "So you heard too?" He nodded, guilt shadowing his face. "I did. And I hate that they make you feel small." She let out a bitter laugh. "Small? I feel invisible. They don't want me. They want a doll who nods and smiles. Maybe I should give up painting and just become what they want." Rohan shook his head firmly. "No, don't you dare say that. Your art, it's you. If you give that up, you'll lose yourself. And I don't want to live with a shadow of you. I want the real Anjali." The sincerity in his voice startled her. For a moment, she felt the wall around her heart crack just slightly. In the days that followed, Rohan began to make small efforts. When relatives teased Anjali for her modern ideas, he would change the subject, protecting her quietly. When his mother scolded her for misplacing spices in the kitchen, he would step in and help cook, much to everyone's surprise. One afternoon, Anjali was painting in her room when Rohan entered with 2 cups of chai. "You paint," he said, setting the cups down, "and I'll play." He picked up his sitar, and soft, melodic notes filled the room. The strings hummed with emotion, longing, hope, and something unspoken. Anjali's brush moved almost unconsciously, her colors blending with the rhythm. When she finally looked at the canvas, she saw something new, a harmony of lines and shades that mirrored the music. She glanced at Rohan. He was watching her not with curiosity, but with admiration. For the first time since the wedding, she felt not judged, but understood. But harmony never lasted long in a house filled with tradition and expectations. One evening, distant relatives visited, bringing gifts and gossip. Over dinner, one of them asked bluntly, "So, Anjali, when will you give us good news?" "A child is the real blessing in marriage." The room fell silent. Heat rushed to Anjali's cheeks. She forced a smile. "We're still getting to know each other." The relatives exchanged glances, murmuring disapproval. Rohan's mother looked embarrassed. "These things take time," she said quickly, trying to smooth the moment. But her eyes lingered on Anjali with quiet pressure. Later that night, Anjali broke down. "They see me as nothing but a vessel for tradition. Do they care about my dreams at all?" Rohan held her hand. "I care. I promise you, you won't lose yourself here. Not while I'm beside you." His words were gentle but firm. In that moment, Anjali realized that though their marriage had been arranged, trust was slowly being built, not through rituals or family pride, but through the quiet choices they made for each other. When the festival of Holi arrived, the house exploded with life. Buckets of colored powder, laughter, music, and water balloons filled the courtyard. Children ran wild, adults danced, and for once the air was light. Rohan spotted Anjali standing to the side, hesitant. Smiling, he dipped his hand into bright pink powder and approached her. "Happy Holi, Anjali," he said, gently smearing the color across her cheek. She gasped, then laughed, a sound he realized he hadn't heard often enough. She grabbed a handful of yellow powder and threw it at him, the color exploding against his sherwani. Soon they were chasing each other like children, laughing, drenched in colors. In that moment, surrounded by music and joy, the walls between them cracked wider. For the first time, Anjali thought, maybe love is not about where it begins, but how it grows. The weeks after Holi seemed brighter. For the first time since her marriage, Anjali felt a little lighter. She and Rohan shared small jokes over breakfast, exchanged glances during family dinners, and in the evenings sometimes sat together, he with his sitar, she with her sketchbook. It wasn't love, not yet. But it was something, trust, perhaps, or the faint outline of affection. But happiness in a house full of expectations rarely lasts without interruption. One afternoon, as Anjali was returning from the market, she saw a woman standing at the gate, speaking warmly with Rohan. The woman was beautiful, tall, confident, dressed in modern clothes that contrasted with the traditional saris of the household. She laughed easily, placing a hand on Rohan's arm in a way that felt far too familiar. Anjali paused, her heart tightening. When Rohan noticed her, he introduced the stranger. Anjali, this is Kiran. She's an old friend from Mumbai. We grew up together. Kiran's eyes sparkled mischievously. Oh, so this is the famous wife I've heard about. Rohan used to talk about you. Well, not you, since you weren't in his life yet, but about the girl he wanted. I suppose fate made its own choice. The words stung, though Kiran said them with a playful smile. Anjali forced a polite greeting, but unease coiled inside her. Over the next few days, Kiran became a frequent presence in their home. She spoke freely with Rohan, reminiscing about their childhood, their college days, the late-night conversations they once shared. Anjali listened silently, each story reminding her that Rohan had a life before her, a life he seemed to share more openly with Kiran than with his own wife. One evening, as they sat in the courtyard, Kiran teased Rohan, "Do you remember when you promised to compose a song just for me? You never did. Perhaps now you'll play it for your wife instead." Rohan laughed awkwardly. That was years ago, Kiran. But the words dug into Anjali's heart. That night, she painted furiously dark, stormy strokes of black and red filling her canvas. When Rohan entered quietly with 2 cups of tea, he froze at the sight of her work. "Anjali, is this because of Kiran?" Her brush stilled. She didn't look at him. "Why should it matter to me? I'm just your arranged wife, remember? She knows you. I barely do." Her voice cracked despite her effort to stay composed. Rohan set the tea down, his expression pained. "Anjali, you are not just anything. You are my partner. Whatever Kiran and I shared, it was the past. You are my present and my future." For a moment, she wanted to believe him. But doubt lingered, like a shadow that refused to fade. As if jealousy wasn't enough, pressure from the family grew heavier. "When will we hear good news?" an aunt asked pointedly one evening. A child would settle her down. "She thinks too much about her paintings." Rohan's mother nodded quietly, though she didn't speak. But her eyes lingered on Anjali, full of unspoken expectations. Later, in their room, Anjali burst out. Is that what they all want? For me to give up my dreams and become just a mother? Do my ambitions mean nothing? Rohan tried to calm her. Anjali, don't think that way. A family can wait. Right now, what matters is you and us. But his words, though kind, could not erase the pressure that weighed on her chest. The tension finally broke one evening. Kiran stayed for dinner, laughing and chatting easily with the family. Anjali sat quietly, eating little, feeling invisible. After the meal, as Rohan walked Kiran to the gate, Anjali followed at a distance. She heard Kiran's voice, low but clear. You've changed, Rohan. Marriage has made you serious. I miss the old you. Rohan chuckled softly. We all change. Life changes us. Kiran leaned closer. Still, sometimes I wonder what would have happened if it had been us. Anjali froze. Her chest tightened, a mix of anger and hurt swirling inside. She returned to her room before Rohan could see her. When he entered minutes later, she stood by the window, her arms crossed. So, she said quietly, if it had been her, would you have been happier? Rohan's eyes widened. Anjali, no. You don't understand. Then help me understand, she snapped, her voice breaking. Because right now, I feel like I'm living in someone else's shadow. He stepped closer, his voice firm but gentle. Listen to me. Kiran is my past. She represents who I was. But you're who I am now. Who I want to be. Don't ever doubt that. Anjali looked at him, her eyes searching. For the first time, she saw not just kindness in his gaze, but desperation, a need for her to believe him. Something inside her softened. She didn't reply, but when he reached for her hand, she didn't pull away. That night, as they sat in silence, the tension slowly melted into something unspoken but real. The road ahead was uncertain, full of family pressure, jealous whispers, and traditions that threatened to suffocate them. But for the first time, Anjali felt that maybe, just maybe, they could face it together.